a true earth angel. We are so grateful to have Angel. Give her another round of applause. Angel, for Jesse, for Lacey, for Michael, for Brian. Thank you so much. And since we are on the heels of Thanksgiving, we are so grateful. We have state-of-the-art talent in this facility at Soul Center. We have amazing musicians, and we are truly, truly grateful for you. Thank you so much. Good morning, Soul Center. It's so good to be here on the heels of an amazing Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a beautiful, amazing Thanksgiving. There's so much to be grateful for. We're grateful for Jessie, who I think your birthday was last Monday, right? So we're really grateful. We are going to also say a little hello to our beloved David Odom, whose birthday is today. So we got a Sagittarius in the house going on here. We're truly grateful. We just want to offer blessings of wellness and goodness and joy and peace and prosperity that is off the charts for you and for all of us, because we're all one. Thank you so much, Jessie. We adore you, David. I hope you're streaming in. We love you. We love you and adore you and send you all kinds of light, and we look forward to having you back here in person. So, Soul Center, are you ready to be exalted into the highest stratosphere of your divine beingness? Yes! Good! Because that's what we do here. We are exalted. Exalted means to be brought into a higher position through love and through joy. Does that sound good? To be brought into a higher position, to a higher experience through love and through joy. That is the way the divine operates. And as an Agape affiliate, we are part of the Agape Association of Communities, an affiliate of Agape. Our beloved Dr. Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, one of my colleagues, my mentors, my teachers, just one of the most beautiful people on the planet, who really is, he exemplifies how you do it. He exemplifies how you live spiritually in the world, how you be in the world but not of the world, how you ground and anchor heaven on earth. That is what we do. That is what is in all of the sacred scriptural teachings from around the world. That golden thread that oftentimes gets missed because some people are too bogged down in the literal translations or the dogmatic iterations of things. And we are to rise above that. We are to move into the mystical teachings. And that's what we do as an Agape affiliate in the New Thought teachings. New Thought, ancient wisdom, we know that the ancient wisdom that has been around for thousands of years, since the beginning of time, the teachings of truth have always been here. Just like electricity was here before we discovered electricity, the presence of the Holy Spirit of God is an eternal light of truth that always sets us free. And so we have chosen to be in that mystical place of a revelation in our lives. Everything is about a revelation. We want to bring, that's how you embody. You embody through revelation. As we move into this new month and joyous, what is joyous and triumphant? That's what we are, joyous and triumphant. That is just it exemplifies what we do. Now, sometimes things aren't always as joyous or it's always triumphant eventually. But sometimes it's not as joyous as we'd like it to be, but we'll talk about that. And the topic for today is letting love cause your effect. We know that cause and effect is one of the most prominent laws that governs the universe. Cause and effect is what goes around comes around. The law of attraction, karma. We are living at that. We are living at the mercy of the law of cause and effect until we transcend it. Just like we're living at the mercy of gravity until we transcend it. There are earthly laws that vibrate at the transitory illusionary level of the material world being that which we came in. We incarnated into human form in all kinds of beautiful costumes. We came in as men and as women and as races and as religions, and all of these is just a costume. It's a part that we play on the big stage called life. And then the good news is, on the stage of life, you're the director, the writer, the producer, the executive production assistant. You have power over all of that to take dominion over your life, like we were talking about last week, to be the CEO of your own life, to be the chief evolutionary officer of your own life. It is up to you. We are not just pawns in some random field where we get tousled and jostled and bopped around in a field where things just happen randomly. No, law of cause and effect, the law of attraction, those laws which help govern the universe are things that we become aware of. And as Ernest Holmes says that every idea is bound to produce an effect exactly at the level of its cause. Meaning that whatever the idea, whatever you believe, whatever you have in your mental body as a belief or an idea, is going to radiate out into the field as a cause and create an effect that will come back to you as an experience. And some of us are not having such great experiences, and some of us are having mediocre experiences, and some of us are having blissful experiences. And I'm going to charge all of us, because this is what we do in our community, is that we are moving towards the blissful experience, moving into that let love be the cause of our effect. Easier said than done sometimes, because we are here to tap into it and take conscious control over it, which is another way of saying taking dominion. So taking conscious control or dominion is not the same as willpower or efforting or force. It's about communing with spirit and returning to the beginning. When I was in meditation the other day, it came to me that we live in the land of something. We live in the place of something. There's something going on here. And in order to affect something, we have to go to no thing, into nothing. If we live in the land of something, and we have to go into the land of no thing in order to affect what we truly desire to the world. A lot of us have desires that we're unaware of. Did you know that right now, there are things that bring you joy, that bliss you out of your gourd, that make your hair curl or straighten depending on which way it needs to go, and you don't even know what those things are. They are amazing. They are things that are tied to the desires of your soul, the law of emergence. Remembering the law of emergence is that which is seeking to rise up, that divine idea, that divine spark, that divine compulsion that wants to rise up through you and express itself into the world. Everyone, as it said in the reading by Reverend Michael, we're not waiting for some enlightened being to come along. We are the enlightened being to come along. We are the one that must say yes. In Jesus, if you read in the Christian Bible where Jesus was kind of known as having a lot of healing, and that some people were so susceptible, they just touched the hem of the garment, that they would be healed. They would pick up their beds and walk. And so this was not a testimony to that Jesus was the almighty, all-powerful, and that we must succumb to him. It was because their willingness to allow themselves to step into that vibrational field, that is what created the miracle or the transformation. It was their willingness to be transformed, to believe and perceive a brand new, to return to the beginning. However you do that. A lot of times, there was plenty of people that weren't healed by Jesus in Scripture, and those were the people who did not want to participate. We, in our community, want to participate in the conscious evolution of our own beingness, to step into that. And whether it's Jesus or Krishna or Buddha or Mohammed or any of the other masters that have walked the earth, it has been said by the master teacher Jesus, these and greater things ye shall do, meaning that you will grab the baton and you will embody within your own beingness that compulsion to cause your effect from love. That is when we return to the beginning. In the beginning was the Word, in the beginning was light. We move to the beginning and we start to create our cause, our effect from love at that place. Now, like I said, sometimes easier said than done, but one of the things that I want to kind of bring into our awareness is, as Wayne Dyer would always say, he goes, you don't get what you want, you get what you are. You have to embody a beingness of what it is you're looking for in order to be an equivalent, a vibrational match, because you have to be a vibrational match to that which you are seeking to experience. So if I'm vibrating in poverty, but I'm aspiring to prosperity, I'm going to not attract my prosperity until I move my vibration up into prosperity. And sometimes we got to put the horse before the cart, because sometimes we're saying, like, we have an egoic yearning where it's like, okay, or we tap into a desire and it has to come through a filter where it's like, okay, I have a belief that I'm unworthy, I have a belief that I don't deserve, I have a belief that I'm not entitled to, or I might even have beliefs that then have excuses piggybacked onto them that say, oh, but I'm not part of the right group, or I'm not in the right society, or I'm not the right gender, or I'm not the right color, or whatever it is, I'm not the right religion, whatever those excuses are that keep us into a lower vibrational field, we have to be willing to let that all go. The world is going to try to tempt you into believing that there's proof. The world is going to go, wait, come over here. In the scripture, when Jesus says, get ye behind me, Satan. There is no Satan. There is no devil. That is the negative thought that enters and creeps into our awareness that would say something like this, like, oh no, but you don't know the right people, or you're not talented enough, or you're not the right this, or you're not the right that. And that is what we want to say, get ye behind me to, because we all know, if you look out into the world, you will find an example of anyone from any gender, or any religion, or any race that has triumphed and made it to the top of the stratospheres of whatever it is they wanted to do. You look at somebody like Oprah, and she is in the stratosphere of complete ascension in terms of, and not in every area of her life, there's a couple things she's working on, but there's certain things where she is, admittedly so. She is a conscious, spiritual explorer wanting to expand. But if you were to look at any of the interviews she ever said, she was absolutely on a scale of 1 to 10, a 10 on the Richter scale. She knew, boom, she was going to be where she is today. She caught a vision, and she aligned her intention with that vision, and she did not buy into any of the race-conscious ideas or the group-conscious ideas that would tell her otherwise. Get ye behind me. She held to a vision, and she kept going, and so many people have done that. Visionaries always hold to the vision, and they do not allow what they see out here to take them from the vision. We take our eyes and we bring them to the North Star in meditation and in prayer. That's what our meditation and our prayer practice is about. To bring us into connection with our truest yearning, the law of emergence within us, the soul desire within our beingness. We capture the vision, whether it's a literal vision or a feeling tone or a knowingness or a hearingness. We melt into the vibration of that which is seeking to emerge itself through us, and we make that more important than anything else. We make that the most important thing, and then you're going to be called in oftentimes, and this is where sometimes the rub comes in. This is the time where you kind of think, okay, what is going on with this universe? It is playing cruel jokes on me. Because sometimes the minute you start to go for what you truly desire, all the things, all the beliefs that you have that would contradict that into beingness, which has kept you from it in the first place, which is why you're not in it to begin with, are going to come up. So for me, for an example, some of you know that prior to it was about 20 years ago when I had my awakening and through a very mystical experience. And the mystical experience, I caught a vision. I caught a vision of where I am today, actually, which was like scared me back then. I was like, I'm not going to be a minister. Are you crazy? I wasn't anywhere near this. I wasn't anywhere near it. I was going to have a spiritual center. No, I don't think so. And but I knew I was in the state of bliss because I had healings. And energy had lifted. Trauma had transmuted off of my heart and out of my physical, emotional, and mental being. I had radical physical healings that all took place within a matter of 24 hours. Things that completely transformed the molecular biochemistry of my beingness, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And so I caught a vision. I didn't really know what to do with that vision, because sometimes you catch visions in pieces. Sometimes what you get, there is a vision that you catch, which is like the grand vision, and there's another one beyond that grand vision, and you're moving towards that, and then you're going to back up. Your spiritual practice is going to back you up. You're going to go into meditation, and you're going to want to know, well, so let's just say there's a staircase, and you're ascending up the staircase towards the vision. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to dial it back after you caught. So I caught the vision of where I was going to be. I saw what was happening, and then dial it back. Now, what do I need to do? What's the next step that I'm going to take on my way to that vision. Now, a lot of people want to just take a big old quantum leap step and go right up to here. Because some people actually think, like if you were a gymnast and you were wanted to be in the Olympics and you wanted to win the gold medal, but you hadn't ever even stepped out into a gymnasium before. And some people just say, well, I'm just gonna get right on out there. Or maybe you're a singer or a dancer or a performer of some sort, and you think that you're ready for this when you're here, but really, you gotta take your lessons, you gotta learn your chords, you gotta do your exercises, you gotta do whatever it takes to get you to up here, to the ultimate vision, remembering that there's gonna be something beyond that vision as well. And then those are the steps. And then those steps, that's when the things are going to show up. Sometimes it's money issues. For me, it was a money issue that came crashing down right after it. Right after I had my healing, I felt so liberated. Liberated like you can't even believe. I felt so free. And within a couple months of being in an industry, in the advertising industry, that it wasn't in my nature. I was doing it because I paid really good money, and I got to go on really good vacations, and I got to feed my ego with all kinds of good things that money brought me, but none of it satiated me. None of it made me feel like, I'm home, it's good. And so when I got liberated, and I had the physical and emotional healings, and I had revelations, and I had a revelation like, you know what? Because the first question I had after the healings was, am I supposed to heal something within me that will allow my career to take off and be good in this advertising field? Or am I supposed to be going off in a different direction because if my North Star is over here and the advertising world was taking me this way, which was it to be? And I sat with it, and it came with me that I was to be moving out of that and move towards what I'm in today, which is a complete and radical transformation. I would have, 21 years ago, I would have said, you're out of your gourd that I would be doing any of this. Well then, after those healings transformed my life, all of a sudden, I went from 6 figures down to about 4 figures in my prosperity consciousness, because now, the part of me that was using willpower, I was using willpower, a lot of willpower, which is exhausting, because I was working 60-hour weeks, and I was people-pleasing, and I was bending over backwards, and I was doing all things that were out of integrity with my soul. And then eventually, when I gave up on willpower and started to migrate over to divine will, like we were talking about last week, where you have willingness that is the bridge from willpower, willingness bridges you over to divine will. So we're moving in that direction, and I came across, and I uncovered one of the biggest turds, which was, pardon my French, but which was my prosperity consciousness rose up, and all of a sudden I started digging through all these things, and I had to move into a field where we were thinking, there was times when we thought we were going to lose our house. We cut everything we could cut. We were just scrimping to get by. And, those thoughts of, I could be homeless. Those were some of the thoughts that kind of transferred or traversed over my mental mind. And so it was like, okay, we got to hunker down. And then, I'm getting into my prosperity consciousness classes and starting to get in there and root out and weed out all of those erroneous ideas and beliefs, so I could understand what true prosperity is versus the egoic version of really efforting and making and keeping up with the Joneses and what that looks like from a physical or material realm. And so we move into a space where it becomes more authentic, and it requires surrender. It requires what it says in Scripture: those who exalt themselves will be humbled. Those who humble themselves will be exalted. Those who exalt themselves will be humbled. And I was humbled. To be humiliated, to be humbled in the best way, means that you're going to let go. You're going to have to come before the altar of the Almighty, and you're going to have to relinquish and let go of all the limiting ideas, which includes your habits, which include your judgments, which include all of that, and you're going to move into a field where you're going to be so humbled, and it brings you to your knees sometimes energetically and sometimes literally. It brings you to your knees when you realize there were people that I didn't like. There were people that I hated in some respect. There were ideas and beliefs about my own worth. Those were all erroneous ideas, and I had to start cleaning up my relationships. I had to start cleaning up the belief system within my beingness. And so I was reading the other day an article about a survivor from the Holocaust. And he was a survivor that was on one of the trains that was headed to Auschwitz. And it was towards the end of the war. And he was on this, car, and it was freezing, it was winter time, and they had basically hardly anything on, and they're in this train headed to Auschwitz, which, they didn't really know what was going to happen, but they were malnourished, and they were on the verge of dying. And so there was the survivor, he was probably around, I don't know, he was early teens. And then there was a slightly older gentleman that was in the car next to him. The car pulled over, as oftentimes would happen, because the Germans sometimes would just pull over the cars for whatever they needed to do, and they would just let them sit there. So they were sitting there in the freezing cold, and they ended up having to sit there overnight, and the temperatures kept dropping. And he noticed there was this one man in this crowded car who was just freezing and shivering. They were all cold, they were all freezing, and he decided he was going to go over and he was going to help this man. He took his awareness off of himself and he put it on to this other person, and he just started to rub him and give him nuts, snuggled up, and then just started rubbing and creating friction. All through the night he was creating friction. And by the time it got dark and you couldn't see anymore, but he was determined to be the presence of God for this other person. And what ended up happening is, in the morning when the sun rose and the light started to crack in and it was starting to get a tiny, tiny smidge bit warmer, everybody else in the car had perished except for those two. Those were the only two that had survived. And that story just kind of moved me, because it's when you allow yourself to be of service to another, when you allow yourself to rise up out of your own misery, your own issues, and to really and genuinely be there for something else. And like I said, like Wayne Dyer said, you don't get what you want, you get what you are. So if you're not feeling prosperous, then you got to be generous. You got to get out there. If you only have $5 to your name, then you're going to give some of that to something. But it's not what you do, it's how you do it. How you do it, the vibrational frequency of how you do anything. So oftentimes, we go out and maybe we're feeling really tight and we're feeling a little stingy, but we don't even know that we're feeling tight and stingy. But we've got reasons to feel tight and stingy. I'm tight and stingy because I got bills to pay, and I got this, and I got that. And then, meanwhile, a lot of times people are like, oh, I gotta be really careful, I gotta be really mindful, oh, I can't tithe, or I can't be generous with the tip, or I can't donate to that, or I can't do any of that, but I'm gonna go get my Starbucks latte, even though I have no money. And so, it's all perception. It's being really perception. I'm not knocking, you're entitled to, although I'm going to say, please stay off the coffee because it's, acidic and it's not good for your bones. But aside from that, if that's the case, I'm going to say move over to tea, please. But anyway, that was a side note. But the thing is bringing it into perspective and being there. So, oftentimes in our classes, as you matriculate through the classes, we have you do things that humble you. We have you get outside of your box. We have you explore certain things. When I was matriculating through practitioner studies, we were looking at what can we do to be of service to other people. And you have to be of service for 2 years. You've got to be of service in all kinds of different ways. And it is very humbling. So that's when you willingly allow yourself to be humbled into a space of expansion, where you allow yourself to be expanded, and you move out of your status quo, and you allow yourself to move out of your excuses as to why things stay the same way, and you move out of the fight or flight self-preservation mode. If you are in fight or flight self-preservation mode, that is a call to move outside of that and to do something despite how you feel, despite how your ego feels about something. You do it in spite of that. It reminds me of a time I was listening to a spiritual teacher talking once, and he was talking about how there was this thing going on in his life, and all of a sudden, this big disaster came, and the house burnt down, and it was, and then because the house burnt down, then he met this person who met this person, and he's like, and so I realized that, oftentimes, and we know this in our spiritual teaching, that the grace and the good and the intelligence and the beauty and the opportunities of God never leave us no matter what disaster is happening. But when we turn to the divine, when we invite it, evoke it, and allow it, that's when you're going to see the transformation. And so he's like, now, if my house hadn't burned down, I wouldn't have met that person, and then I wouldn't have met that person, because years later, one of those people ended up being a very critical part in the expansion of his good in his life with some other business opportunity. And I was listening to that, and I'm like, okay, I agree to that with a point, because we know in our teachings that if you listen to the call of your soul, the law of emergence, if you are pulled by the vision of your life and not pushed by the pain, he was giving an example of being pushed by the pain, that something arduous and horrific had to happen in order to wake him up, that was going to make these little synchronistic connections. And yes, those synchronistic connections happen, not because they had to happen in order for you to have the experience, but in spite of the experience, good was there, God was there. One of the other versions could have been, I could be pulled by the vision, and I could have gotten the information and the connections to make those synchronistic connections later on down the line without having to lose my house. So no judgment on the whole thing, but I just want to kind of clear up that you don't have to learn through arduousness. You don't have to learn through pain and suffering. Pain and suffering is resistance. Now, at the same time, we don't make it bad. The faster you can surrender into the circumstance and look and allow love to be the cause of your effect, the faster you do that, the quicker you're going to rise up and make even deeper and even more profound spiritual connections and synchronistic and serendipitous connections, because you are in charge of that. We have dominion over our life, and that is why we turn within. We turn into the prayer field, which in the beginning prayer is a practice that takes you, it's a portal that takes you from the temporal, from the finite, into the infinite, into the eternal, until it becomes a way of life. And then when you are living in that space, the law of cause and effect, you've transcended it, because now you only live in glory to greater glory, good to greater good. So I'm going to ask you to join me as we take a moment, and we're going to kind of look into what is it that I could do that will bring love as my cause and my effect, and what is it that I can actually embody and then actually be omni-active, because we know God is omni-active. Omni-active, God is being omni-active means love is dynamically expressing itself as activity. That is omni-active. So we want to be omni-active beings, where we create from the beginning. We create from the truest, purest, holiest desire, and we don't allow ourselves to be deterred from that. So we're going to move into a space where I'm going to invite you to just join me as we turn within. We're going to turn within, and I'm going to invite you to once again bring your hands to your heart center with the intention that we are allowing our heart to connect with our soul, that we are allowing ourselves to open to the call of that which is seeking to express, open to the call, the vision of the soul, the law of emergence in, through, and as you, as me. And we want to just open into a field and ask, what is something that love can do to express through me? Now, without searching, without efforting, without trying, we're just going to open to that. How can love express itself in a relationship right now? How can it actively express itself? What action can I take in a relationship, whatever comes to your mind, that will express higher love? Higher love. What can love do to express through me in my career? We just want to open to that. How can love create an effect in my life, in my career, in that relationship? And how can this express itself through self-care and self-love, in the ultimate expression of spiritual selfishness? We open into that, for we know that when we live from the overflow, it is easy. It is easy to be of service, to be there for anything and everyone. So we open into that, and we ask, what action, what can I do to allow love to be the cause of the effect in my life as self-love and self-care? And just allowing yourself to commune with that. The answer may come to you now. It may come to you during the prayer. We bring our hands from over our heart into prayer position. Oh, perfect timing. The lights go out right as we're ready to move into prayer. And as we move into this space, whether your eyes are open or closed, I just invite you to join me as we move into this field of infinite grace, infinite light, infinite love. As we open our hearts, our bodies, our minds, our souls to the omnipotence, the omnipresence, and the omniamorous light of God, And we allow it to be omniactive through us, remembering the great truth, the great remembering that we are born in the very image, the very likeness of God. Right where we are, the entirety of the kingdom of heaven resides. It is not some place, it is not somewhere. It is indwelling within us, and we activate it. We activate the holy light, that divine spark of our beingness that has never been hurt or harmed. That part of our beingness that knows nothing of age or condition, situation, circumstance, gender, race, religion. It knows nothing of this. It only knows perfect, effulgent expression. And we allow ourselves to be exalted, lifted through joy into a higher position in our lives, a higher position that allows us to see with God's eyes and hear with God's ears, the truth that sets us free, always. We allow ourselves to be omni-active. And we know that our desires, the true desires placed in our hearts, in our souls by the divine God Almighty itself, we know that that is our path to joy, is our path to bliss, to nirvana. And so we open to that. I'm truly grateful to remember that it is our job to be in divine right receivership. We are to be the blessers and the blessed. We are to receive our blessings, and we are to bless everything and everyone. And in this seasons of miracle, might, and gratitude, we take a moment and we hold everybody on our prayer list right now, and we bless them with the highest, greatest, and grandest experiences of liberation and joy and wellness and prosperity. And that which we bless upon others, it returns to us, and it reflects itself, and it expresses itself to us and through us. So we bless everything and everyone. We bless all spiritual communities, all cultures, all people around the world. We bless them with light, with love, with grace, with beauty. And we say yes to being absolutely motivated and enthusiastic, that we are only and always motivated by enthusiasm and inspiration. This is how we roll. This is how we glow. This is how we grow. This is how we go. I am truly grateful that each and every one of us has said yes to a greater and grander experience of omni-activity, omni-amorous grace, beauty and light and love. We ground heaven on earth to, through, and as our beingness. We ground it into our bones, into our tissues, into our cells, into our experience, in benevolent and beautiful ways. This is what we choose. This is what we allow. This is what we claim. This is what we agree to accept. Humbly, reverently, effulgently, magnificently. We allow it all to be. We give permission. We move into the deepest state of divine receptivity. We give it all permission to take place to, through, and as our lives, right here, right now, that we always choose aright, taking us in the direction of our North Star. And it is from this place of deep and abiding devotion and thanksgiving that we release the prayer into the law of creation, and we allow it to fulfill itself even better than we could ever imagine with our surface minds, claiming it so by saying, and so I let it be, so it is, Amen. 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 Aho. Ashe. Shalom. Hotep. And hallelujah. Thank you. Yes, I love this place. I think it's time for the ushers to come forward as we prepare and practice the art of tithing, which is the highest form of circulation. We open into that. And as we do, we hold our tithe, we hold it in our hands, and we bless it. We know that God is our source and our supply, that there is no way to outgive or outreceive God, and we choose to experience circulating that divine holy presence called money. We allow that which it says on our currency, in God we trust, to fulfill its destiny financially, that we move into the highest stratospheres of financial freedom individually and collectively. I'm truly grateful to know that we are allowing ourselves here at Soul Center to move into that building right there. We are allowing it to rise from the ground, and we are going to move into that. That is the vision that was captured. We are allowing it to matriculate into time and space. All of our programs, all of our endeavors coming into expression. If you are watching online, I'm going to ask you to please go to soulcenteroc.com, scroll down, hit the donate button, and donate, please. Our community depends on that. And you can also text to donate, area code 669-342-2157. Go ahead and text to donate 24 hours a day. You can donate online. We appreciate your donations. We ask the ushers to move forward.